Right. Hello everyone. Did it work? It's fine.
Yeah.
All right. So welcome to our Pisoc Presents. Today we're going to present cool files. We're going to present some file extensions that we think are useful for your software needs. Firstly, I'll talk about a little bit about myself, and then we'll talk about a little bit about what we will cover in this presentation. All right. So, my name is Lucas. I'm currently the secretary of Pisoc, and I'm the second year of computer science for games. Regarding what we're going to talk about today, we're going to talk about some file extensions, namely YAML, JSON, TOML, XML. We're going to cover a little bit for what they're used for, and a little bit also about syntax. We won't go too deep into it, just enough to get you working with it. All right. These files are normally used for a lot of things. A lot of applications use it, and you should think about them when starting to develop some kind of app. It's also a good way to debug your program, because when you have a big project, right? You don't want to have all of your code in just one file. You want to distribute that out and having organize your file, so when you have to debug it, you don't have to search through a 1,000 line code. You can just go to that 30 line configuration file, and you only have to change those parameters to make that work. We're gonna talk firstly about YAML, right? So YAML stands for Ain't Markup Language. We have, as you can see by the Y and the A, it says it's a recursive acronym because it can be ain't markup language, but it also means yet another markup language. So it's kind of a funny trick they do with the wording there, because programmers like to be funny when they make something. So YAML tries to be flexible. It tries to have a lot of complex things, and it tries to have a object-oriented approach when it tries to make its syntax. The way you read it, it's very the way it works with scopes. It will try to make its best to look like an object-oriented language, even though it's not. So what is it used for? So normally you can use this for configuration files. Again, it tries to be a human readable language, so it looks simple enough to make your configuration file. This can be for databases, something like that. It's very good also to store some data. Again, these files, since they try to be object oriented, it tries to have a good structure to store all of your data. All of the files we're going to talk about today are good for storing data. Some are better than others because some are more descriptive, some are easier to parse. It really depends on what you want to do. It's also very good for data interchange, because when you have some kind of program that you want to build, you might reconsider having these kind of files in use, because if you want to have some kind of contact details, for example, you might want to make them as YAML objects. So you use a YAML file to basically talk around with your program, and how it's gonna work is just write to a YAML file, read a YAML file, and it will make your program more efficient and more organized. So, we're going to jump right into syntax. So, the text editor I'm going to use, it's going to be Sublime Text. I use Sublime Text because it's very good for what it does. It tries to highlight everything that you're not expecting. So it really tries to make things simple when you're trying to write something. And for example, today I want to talk about TOML, and it did not have TOML installed, but what I could do is just install that package. So that's a cool thing that Sublime Text lets you do. So you would just search that package and you would download it, so it could start highlighting those colors to know what you're building. You can do this for a lot of more things, but we are not going to use that today. Right. Drink some water. Alright, so YAML. YAML normally starts with 3 hyphens and ends with 3 dots. That's how you know it's the beginning and the ending of a YAML file. What you're going to do, what I have planned for today, is making a Pisoc present object. So we're going to start with syntax, and the way YAML handles things is with key value structure. So you have some kind of key, and it is associated with a value, kind of like a dictionary. But to make objects, we're going to write our key name, so we know that we have a Pisoc present object, and we're going to use the double dot to basically represent that we're starting a Pisoc present object. So I'm going to write some variables now, like strings, integers, and boolean types. So we're going to start with a string. So host is going to be me, it's going to be Lucas, and we can start to see here that they have two spaces. And the way YAML works is that every 2 spaces you enter a new scope. So that's how YAML is going to work out with scopes. It uses a Python style identification, which means that every tab, which here is 2 spaces, it will know that you're entering a new scope. And here, when I put host equal to Lucas, we can see the double quote. So that's because we are making host, the key host, equal to a string, which is Lucas. So it follows the standards that normal languages use. Following it, we're going to have our present number. This is our second present, so we're going to equal it to 2. Are we live? We are live, so we're going to make it true. And then we can have date. I will touch upon the true values because there are some exceptions in YAML, and I want to teach you about them because you might run into some errors if you do not know about these. About date, YAML does follow a standard, so you do have to follow what they want. You cannot go and make your own data format. So the way it goes, it's year, then month, then day, and you can also have time. And to do that, we just have time. And we can also have our offset if you feel like you want to have an offset. Right, so right now we just assigned some variables to the Pisoc present object. And I want to mention that we can make comments in YAML, which is very useful if you want to describe your data. So yeah. Some files that we're going to talk about, they do not support comments, and believe me, as a programmer, I think we all know that comments is always a very helpful thing when we want to develop something. Another thing that I want to point out is that you cannot write anything beyond the hyphen. So if you wanted even just to make a comment, this would give you an error, and it would never know that you're trying to read a YAML file. So do refrain yourself from typing something before the actual document starts. Another thing I'm going to talk about is that we can make nested objects. So we can create another object like we did. So we need a description to describe what we're going to do today. So we have a description object which is now inside the Pisoc present object, and you can see that Sublime is already telling me that we're going to enter a new scope. So we're going to need a title for our present, which is going to be cool files. And there we go. We can see we are in different scope. We are working with the description object. So this means we have a title inside the description of the Pisoc present object. And that's how it tries to do everything related to objects. We're going to have some topics that we're going to talk about today. So I'm going to make another object, and we're going to go again trying to make an array of objects. So we're going to talk about 4 languages today. Just make this pretty. Okay, so we're going to talk about YAML, we're going to talk about JSON, we're going to talk about TOML and XML. So these are not